Hey, what's up guys? My name is Alex, and I want to use this video to talk about my plant-based fitness journey and what that whole process has looked like for me. It's been a long process. I've been plant-based for about 3 years now. I've learned a lot. I have struggled. I have pushed through, and I've gained a lot of strength, flexibility. I'm more athletic now than I've ever been in my life. And I want to just share with you some of the things that I've walked through and learned in this process. So let's start at the beginning. So I was fairly athletic growing up. I played sports in middle school, high school. I was always kind of conscientious about health stuff, about eating properly, about getting the right nutrients, getting the right vitamins, so on and so forth. And that kind of carried over to my adult life, where I went to the gym fairly regularly, but just focused on kind of endurance training and just some moderate light weightlifting. A couple of things I always struggled with was tendinitis and joint pain. I had so much joint pain in my knees that would flare up all the time, especially in sports. I had tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. I was a rock climber for a couple of years. Put a lot of stress on my joints in my forearm and my wrists, my fingers. So I would have that flare up, and then in my shoulders it became bad later on. That it would just come up every now and then. And then another thing I struggled with was eczema, and that was a severe case on my feet that like pretty much stayed with me all the time. In the summertime, in any kind of warm time when I was active, there would just be like rashes all over my feet, on the tops of my feet, and then it would come on my hands and then other parts of my body too. So what got me initially interested in the plant-based diet was watching the documentary What the Health. That was the thing that really pushed me into this questioning of like, is it actually possible? Is it actually something I can do that's sustainable, that I can still build muscle on? And one of the questions that I always had was that plant-based diet and vegan diet sounds like a good idea, because I was already kind of about eating plants and finding nutrients in plants, and I understood that concept, but I thought that there just wasn't enough protein. I believe the protein myth that you have to have the animal products to get that macro nutrient so that you can build muscle. And that documentary just really challenged that and shattered that to the point of where I just said, okay, I'm gonna try this and see if it actually can work for me. So the first week was pretty rough. I think psychologically it was the hardest thing, because just not eating meat and dairy for a whole week, I just felt like my body might just implode. But I think it was just a transition period, and like I said, most of it was psychological. After that first week of feeling like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm finding some recipes, I'm actually still alive, like I'm not dead, I'm not collapsed, then I started realizing that, hey, this is a mind thing too. Like I need to get this concept that I can actually thrive with this. This is when I got introduced to people in that documentary, like Rich Roll, some of his recipes and his guides and his support. I found someone named Derek Simnet of Simnet Nutrition. Shout out to Derek. Thank you so much, bro. I can honestly say this guy was like the main influence of like my fitness stuff and my vegan recipe stuff, and just support for continuing this kind of lifestyle. So major props to him. My family thought I was crazy too. No one in my family had ever thought about doing this, and I was definitely a pioneer. But by the way, since then, most of my family is now like majority plant-based. So a couple of the things that I noticed in the very first part of going vegan was really amazing. First, notably, the first month, my eczema completely cleared, like completely gone, like night and day difference. And I was so amazed to see this, because I had been used to dealing with the eczema on my feet and just constantly having that itchiness there, constantly having to like somehow medicate and soothe the rashes that were there. And to see that start to clear up in a matter of weeks, to the point where there's no other reason why it would be gone except for the thing that I've changed, which is my diet. The second really cool thing happened about 2 to 3 months in, and that was my joints started getting so much better. They started getting like this extra elasticity and strength, to the point where I noticed that before I could only do pull-ups to the point where my limiting factor was my elbows becoming like inflamed in the joints, and that was what was causing me to stop. That was the thing that I started noticing disappearing at around the 2 to 3 month mark of going plant-based. is I would be doing the pull-ups and I would not feel any kind of that normal tension and that normal pain and stress in my elbows. When I started noticing that all over my body, in my shoulders, my knees too. And the third thing that happened that I noticed was the brain fog and fatigue and kind of mid-afternoon crashes that I was kind of used to experiencing. Those started to leave, and I started just experiencing in general like a greater amount of energy and mental clarity throughout my day. So some of the things I've learned on a plant-based diet for someone like me, an ectomorph like me. And an ectomorph just means it's really hard to gain weight, and that's the way I've been throughout my entire life. I've always struggled to gain weight, to maintain weight. If I skip a meal, I'll lose like 5 pounds instantly. That's not everyone's problem, but that's definitely been my problem over the years. So going to a plant-based diet where the food is inherently lower caloric density, the biggest thing is to get the calories in, to find foods that are the right caloric density for your weight plan or for your goals. And so for me, that's like a lot of good healthy fats, like plant-based fats, like avocados, coconuts, nuts and seeds, nut butters, stuff like that. And as far as protein supplementation goes, I've been using Viva Life's Perform Raw plant-based protein, and I can honestly say that this has been a really good product for me. I've been using it the entire time I've been vegan. I still use it today and will continue on using it in the future. So definitely recommend checking them out. In general, I've had some of the best meals I've ever had doing the vegan plant-based diet. Learning to cook without the meat and dairy is challenging at first, but it forces you to explore the different varieties of food even more. I'll do some more videos talking about the recipes that I've found and that I use regularly. I'll do some videos of my macros and stuff like that. If you all are interested, I can definitely post some stuff like that. So just let me know in the comments what you think about that, and I'll get some content out. So it wasn't until about 9 months into the whole plant-based diet change thing that I really ramped up the training. This thing that really changed it for me was the Arnold Sleep Faster video. There's 24 hours in a day. How are you gonna maximize your day to get the most out of life? You have a body, you've been given this as a gift. How are you gonna maximize it to get the most out of your body? And that's just something that resonated with me. So at that point, I became really interested in weightlifting and powerlifting, but I still really had an interest in calisthenics. I started out very modestly. I was not a strong weightlifter. I had never really had been. My squat was pretty weak, deadlift was weak, my bench was weak, and getting into the gym, I was hit head on with that reality that, hey, I'm like starting pretty low. Like I'm surrounded by all these other dudes in the gym that are lifting like way more than me. A couple of people that definitely influenced me in the beginning and still influence me now to this day is Athlean X and Jeff Cavalier. Go check out his channel if you have. He has so much information about just how to train smart and how to train well and how to actually get good results. And some of his videos literally turned it all around for me, of learning how to strengthen the rear delts. Another guy that taught me a lot was ThinX, the guy from ThinX. I think his name is Chris Heria. But his whole work with the calisthenics stuff was a huge inspiration to me. That's definitely a big reason of how I learned how to do the muscle up, which was a huge milestone for me. I'd worked on that thing for a long time and finally realized that it was just all technique that I had to learn instead of just trying to brute force my way through it. Once you learn the right technique to muscle up, you don't even have to have that much strength. If you can do like 10 good pull-ups, then you can definitely do a muscle up. Same with like the human flag, stuff like that, planche push-ups. He has a great way of teaching about that stuff. So over the last 2 years or so, I've really been focusing on the power lifts. I've really learned how to divide up my training, not just in strength training, but in getting that power and stabilization training as well. So I've definitely gained some strength with all the lifts, so that's been encouraging to see. Even though it's been a slow process for me, I'm just taking it one day at a time and enjoying the journey. Pretty much my goal is to be a well-rounded athlete, to do things like the Spartan races. I love doing stuff like that where it's fun, where you can actually enjoy functional athleticism that your training should be able to produce. You should be able to be really strong, but also run really fast. I don't want to just have one or the other. I want to try to have both. So as you can see earlier, some of the pictures and photos of me right when I started going vegan. I took a bunch of before pictures and you can kind of see where I was there. You can see I was about 175 pounds there, give or take. That was when I was mostly just running, mostly just doing like push-ups and like some light cardio, some light resistance training, nothing too serious. And I was in, I'd say, just decently healthy shape. I mean, I wasn't eating bad, but I wasn't like super healthy or anything like that either. So as you can see from some of these other pictures, I was pretty much just gaining a little bit of muscle at a time, just hard gaining the whole time. So I was just slowly creeping up there in muscle gain. I did have a little bit of fat, so in the beginning, I kind of stayed at the same weight. I didn't really fluctuate that much, and I think I was just going through a body recomposition period where I was losing the little bit of extra fat that I did have, and I was slowly gaining the muscle. I've definitely had some plateaus and times where I wasn't really seeing much or I was going backwards almost. But then you just gotta push through those times is what I've learned. And every time I've done that, every time I've gone into the gym and felt like I wasn't able to bench press as much as I was last week or the week before, if I just push through and try and not give up and just do what I can and train smart and then learn how to rest and give my body some slack, I found that every time I do that, I'll come in the next week or the week afterwards and I'll be able to PR. Building muscle is not always a linear thing. There's ups and downs to it. But if you're consistent and you are consistent with your diet and you take care of yourself, you will see an overall positive trend. So these pictures are where I am pretty much right now, where I'm sitting at. I'm about 200 to 205, somewhere in that range usually, depending on if I've eaten a lot that day. And you can definitely see a big difference in the physique, overall physique, and overall muscle mass, and also fat loss. I think the plant-based diet has definitely been a very positive contributor to me overall. I think that I probably could have gained weight easier if I had stuck with conventional diet, with eating the animal products and animal fat. I think it probably would have been easier to gain weight overall, which has been one of my goals, to gain overall mass. But I think I would have gained more fat with it as well, which brings me to the conclusion that the plant-based diet is harder to gain weight overall, but the weight that you do gain and the mass that you do gain is more likely to be lean mass as opposed to just bulk mass, which is lean and fatty mass. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching this and being a part of my channel. If you want to see any videos of my recipes or my training stuff or have me talk about anything else, just let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you all soon. All right, have a great day. Bless you guys.